MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
What's up, podcast peeps? How you doing? Glad you're back. And you just keep coming back. We keep changing things on you, and you keep coming back, so we appreciate it. I hope you guys like the new style, new format, new looks we're doing out there. And we would love your feedback, too, if you have some feedback, some topics for us, because this is the way we're going to roll from now on out on My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. I am Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Shaw. So we have been doing it a little bit differently, for the podcast, the last few podcasts, Dan. So I know folks at home have probably been wondering what's going on. And today we got a special broadcast or podcast that we're going to be doing. We're going to break it up, and we're not going to neglect our fans at home with the mailbag segment. We're going to jump into some mailbag questions and knock out a few of those on today's podcast.
Yeah. Obviously, we are switching it up a little bit. Now, no longer have to do 2-hour shows. Obviously, we couldn't stand each other for that long. Brandon and I, we don't like each other, so we just couldn't handle it. So now 30-minute shows, and that's what we're dealing. That's what we're going to deal with, and we still get the viewers' questions and special episodes now with just mailbag questions and a whole variety of topics. So I'm excited about it, and now after 30 minutes, I don't have to see you anymore, Brandon.
Yeah, but hey, I don't think you've ever looked better than that intro now on the podcast. Looking sharp, Dan Shaw.
That is true. I'm getting modeling gigs left and right now because of you, Brandon.
So that's the way we're going to roll. Shorter podcast for you folks at home, but keep submitting questions like you always do. Keep submitting topics for us, because that's going to be bigger than ever, because we're going to do more topics for you, cover more content, and you don't have to sit through a 2-hour show. So appreciate you for joining us. And today we're going to do those mailbag questions, just like Dan said. So on this particular podcast, as Dan mentioned, we got a variety. So we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. Yes. We got a question that refers to game 1 of that Cleveland-Boston series. But now we've played 2, so this question gets a lot more interesting. But we got that. And in case you didn't know, sports gambling was passed through the federal courts now, allowing states to determine whether or not they allow sports gambling. So big topic this week. We'll talk about that. Also going to talk about the Toronto Raptors. They fired Dwayne Casey, to me, much deservingly so, after getting swept by Cleveland like that. He just looked lost. So they need to hire a new coach. We're going to talk about who those potential candidates may be. We're also going to talk about one of Dan's boys, Dez Bryant, yet to sign on the team. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll hear from some of our favorites here on the podcast. If you're playing fantasy baseball in our league, they're not really your favorites right now, because they're doing pretty well and cleaning up. But Nick and Judy Pertins are back. So we'll talk about all that on this podcast, coming straight from you guys, the mailbag questions. And can't wait to get into it. We're going to bring in Orlando Torres in here to help us, because that last question that Nick and Judy throw out there is really for him, and it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I hope he better say yes to this question, and to kind of tease it a little bit. I think it would be perfect for the show, because I'm with the Pertins. I'm not believing in Orlando's fantasy baseball success. I don't even think he knows what a ground rule double is. So maybe we can ask him on the show and figure out. But
tied for the best record in the league.
Yeah, no, I know. Less points than me, but yes, tied for the best record. So
5-1.
Good for him. Good matchups. Matchups.
While we're waiting for Orlando to join us and jumping into the first mailbag question, talking about the Boston-Cleveland series, I just want to kind of recap with you. Dan, did you see the NBA draft lottery last night?
No, I refuse to watch it, mainly because what are we really watching? We're watching what the NBA decides the NBA draft is going to look like. So I don't even watch it. Don't watch it.
Well, I was very disappointed, as you might guess. I don't know how you finished with the second worst record in the NBA, and statistically, your odds were greater to get the fourth pick than a top 3 pick. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But Grizzlies get the 4th overall pick. And to me, that's disappointing because, as we were talking about off camera, and I think we've talked about before, to me, there was tier 1 of NBA prospects, and that's DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, and Luka Doncic. To me, that's your top tier, your 3 top guys for sure. Then you dip down into some lower tier guys like your Michael Porter Jr., Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., and some of those guys. So now the Grizzlies are in a really tough position because you got to try to pick the best prospect out of the 2nd tier of guys. I rather would have just had Bagley, Ayton, or Luka Doncic and just took my chances. So now you have to even play matchmaker and guessing game as to which one of these guys, number 1, will stay healthy, Michael Porter Jr., and number 2 is going to be an asset and fit into your team. So it's a guessing game, and I don't like it. I don't like how it worked out at all. Orlando Torres is here. How you doing, bud?
Hey, how's it going? Pretty good. How about yourself?
We're doing great. Did you catch the NBA draft lottery last night? Which you probably don't even care. You probably haven't cared about that ever in your lifetime because the Spurs are never in that position.
Yeah, no, exactly. But no, I didn't. I was too busy. I decided to put it on, but I had someone text me, letting me know what was going on about the Suns getting the first pick and stuff like that. So pretty much what Dan said, I was watching the Cavs and Celtics game and just minding my own.
Well, I know you've kind of reviewed the questions. We're going to save the best for last for you. We have a question from the Pertons. I know you checked it out, so we'll get to that. How you feeling about that, though? Don't you feel, just honored that they're including you in making demands and throwing out requests over the fantasy baseball season, which you've never played fantasy baseball before. Now you're in the thick of it, man.
Yeah, now I'm in the thick of it. I didn't think I was going to get this far with Nick and Judy, or I should say with Nick, but it's getting pretty interesting. You know, this is carried on from football or on to baseball, and this has been a pretty long-going feud, as if you would say.
This is the first league that Nick and Judy have joined us in, and I don't know that I like it. I don't know that they'll be invited to the football league. Because
I'm going to invite them. I love it. I love getting messages from you, Brandon, with random trade proposals that the Pertons constantly make for you, and it brings joy to my life. So I like it.
I also love defeating both of them in fantasy. So football's even better. So enjoy and bring them on.
They do talk the trash, and they do send the trade proposals. That is for sure. Which they even incorporated that into their question. But hey, let's jump into those mailbag questions. The first one comes from our man, Antone, bite your ass. But here it goes something like this. Okay, let's put this nonsense to rest. One game don't mean shit for the Celtics winning. LeBron said so himself. You think he's going to have 15 points again? Hell no. Don't mean shit. Cavs still going to win. Nerd Brad Stevens will get you 1, maybe 2 victories, but talent gap between Celtics and LeBron is real. J.R. Smith about to go off. Who agrees the Cavs aren't in no damn trouble? Real talk. Anton, bite yo ass. Well, we're even 1 game forward, Anton. So, I don't know. Everything you just said loses a whole lot of credibility just 1 day later. Dan was even asking me, hey, let's do the podcast on Tuesday night, because once this game goes down tonight, we're not going to be able to talk about this. And he was right. And nobody wants to talk about this because I've been telling y'all, the talent gap is real. The Celtics have a team. Cleveland does not. They're carrying one. And LeBron couldn't have played more perfect than he did in the first quarter. I mean, damn, he had 30 in the first quarter. He played great. He had a triple-double. So the talent gap is wide here. I'm not saying that this is going to be a sweep by any means. But to me, this series is over because one team is clearly better. Indiana took them to 7 games in the first round. Toronto was a joke. That's why Dwayne Casey got fired. Boston is for real. They're winning this series, no doubt. And as far as J.R. Smith going off, let me play this for you.
J.R. 0 points again? Again? How do you keep getting 0 points? How does an NBA player get 0 points?
They was locking me up.
They was locking you up? Oh, okay. Love, was they locking you up? Kyle, was they locking you up? Oh, I guess they must have just locked the best player on the team then.
I guess so.
You ain't no best player on the team, JR. You the sorriest.
Now that right there, guys. Did you watch that beforehand, Orlando? I know I kind of sent it to you guys, but did you have a chance to watch that video of LeBron going off on JR?
Oh yeah. It was a mess. It's crazy.
That
Quite
was
hysterical.
That was hilarious, and the conversation may have even went something like that. So I don't know, Antoine, when this J.R. Smith going off is going to happen. Maybe it's one game in Cleveland at home, but it ain't happening so far. So no, man, the Cavs are in trouble. It's over. They're not winning this series. They're just not good enough. And I knew at halftime, Brad Stevens was about to make some adjustments. That nerdy Brad Stevens, well, he went into the locker room at halftime last night and he adjusted some things. He even started playing Greg Monroe, and it turned around. So, and Al Horford hasn't even been a focal point of the Boston offense yet. He's clearly capable of dominating if they choose so. But Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, those dudes are for real. And to me, it's a mismatch. It's a mismatch. Dan, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I still have faith in Cleveland. Basically, Boston did their job. They won their 2 at home, and now it's Cleveland's job to win their 2 in Cleveland, and hope to steal one either Game 5 or Game 7. So I'm still on the Cleveland train. I think LeBron is going to reach his 9th consecutive finals. It is.
It would be 8th. It would be his 8th straight.
Well, he'll probably get to 9 because they're going to get it this year and next year. So,
get Trae Young, right?
Exactly. Trae Young. Well, I don't even think he's going to stay in Cleveland, but that's for a topic for a different 30-minute show. I still don't see him losing. I mean, J.R. Smith, Antoine, I mean, that looked bad for you. He was 0 for 7 in the game last night. It didn't look very good. Obviously, he had the flagrant foul at the end of the game. He will not be punished by the NBA, which I guess is good for Cleveland, or maybe not, because he can't hit a shot. But he'll heat up at home. I do think that Cleveland will win both of these games to at least tie it up, and then we'll see. It's a best 2 out of 3 once that happens. But I'm not so sure that, I'm not crowning Boston the way you are, Brandon, although Brad Stevens is coaching his hiney off. So props to him. And yeah, I mean, they definitely have some players, but none of them are LeBron. So I'm still sticking with it.
But is the eye test not telling you Boston is the better team here? I mean, they just flipped the switch last night. Cleveland was winning by close to double digits most of the first half. I think the halftime deficit was maybe 7, but LeBron was playing his ass off. Cleveland was looking very good. They were possession by possession, really taking advantage every trip down the floor almost, not really turning it over, playing well. And then it didn't even matter. Boston still won by 13. So the eye test you're not even sold at the eye test is telling you, yeah, Boston is clearly the better team.
I give that to home court advantage in these first 2 games. Let's see in Cleveland what happens and kind of reboot. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't look good. Chemistry kind of looks a little messed up. In the broadcast last night, Jeff Van Gundy made a great statement that was kind of like the Cleveland teammates are giving each other more eye rolls than a 30-year-old married couple, and that was kind of hit home with me a little bit. But I think they're going to be able to get it together. I still have faith. I'm not ready to just say LeBron is dead in the water yet. I think we've seen too many times where he's able to to muster victories himself. And I think at home, at least, he's going to be able to do that. Whether it does in Boston is going to be the question, but I think this is going to be an elongated series.
And you know me, I'm not a LeBron hater. I like LeBron James. I think he's the baddest man on the planet right now and has been for a long time, but he can only do so much. He had a 42-point triple-double last night, and they still got beat by 13, and I don't think home court means a thing for them, and not in this particular series. I don't think that home crowd in Cleveland is going to make a bit of difference when it comes to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They have no fear. They have no fear at all. And they play like it. And the shots Jason Tatum was hitting last night, woo, that kid is, man, they made the right pick in Boston last year when they drafted him. I think 3rd overall. So, right choice. Orlando, what are you seeing in this series so far?
Yeah, I'm not going to count out Cleveland just yet, but I mean, I totally agree with you. The chemistry for Cleveland last night was horrible. I mean, but this is something we've been seeing for a long time. The stuff in the locker room, this is nothing new. Unfortunately, I mean, that's pretty hysterical. It's pretty sad when you think about it, how this is, nothing new for Cleveland. A lot of teams go through it, but I'm not gonna go ahead and count on LeBron just yet. I think Boston did a good job. I thought Cleveland was gonna go ahead and steal game 2. I want to see what happens if Cleveland comes back and wins 2. I want to see how Boston responds to that. I'm not gonna give Cleveland those 2 games because Boston is playing himself, but I just want to see how Boston handles this on the road and going forward. And they're carrying that momentum, 9-0 at home, or 8-0 at home in the playoffs, whatever it is. And I just want to see them carried on to the road. And because besides LeBron and a bunch of guys, this is a guy who's a team who's been there before. So I want to see how they react to it. So I still think it's going to be a pretty long series. I'm not ready to write off Cleveland just yet.
Yeah, 9-0 at home so far in the playoffs this year. Best start of the playoffs by any team there's any Celtics team since they did that in 2008 when they won the championship. So man, I don't know, Antone, man. I'm sorry we didn't get to this question last night because my answers would have been a little less ferocious to you. But no, this is over. So one more opinion, one more answer from you guys, Orlando. You actually think Cleveland has a chance and is capable of controlling 4 games and getting 4 wins out of this series out of the next 5 games?
With LeBron there, yeah. This is a guy who's done it before. I know the situation, but with LeBron there, they go back to Cleveland. They, go back to reset mode. They're down 0-2. Yeah, I'm still going to give Cleveland a chance. I'm not going to go ahead and write him out. They're down. He's done it before, against the Warriors. And I know this Celtics team is looking good, but I'm not going to write them off just yet. I'm still giving Cleveland, as long as they have LeBron there, a chance.
Okay, Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question. You honestly believe that Cleveland is capable of controlling 4 more games and winning 4 out of these last 5 games?
Yes. And when you're talking about Boston's home playoff record this year, look at their away playoff record. The Bucks pushed them to 7 games in the first round because they couldn't win away from their home court. So don't write off Cleveland just yet.
All right, there you go. So sorry it didn't work out for you, Antone. So bite my ass. But let me ask you about this real quick, guys, before we end this particular topic. The flagrant foul from J.R. Smith last night. I had a buddy, Jeff Hill, reach out to me. I know you guys have probably buddied up on Facebook a time or two. A high school buddy of mine, Jeff Hill, reached out to me today and said, what's your take on that J.R. Smith non-flagrant 2 call last night? To me, I think it was about the dirtiest play you could possibly have in basketball in today's game when you're pushing a defenseless guy with 2 hands, blatant push, when he's up in the air underneath the goal. Very lucky that it didn't turn out worse for Al Horford. But just being a flagrant 1, is there anything into that as far as the league not wanting any suspensions here? Wanting everybody at full strength because the ratings are going to be high anytime LeBron and his team is involved. So do you think that had something to play in it? How did you feel about that foul, Dan? And I know you mentioned that it may have even helped Cleveland, and that was kind of my response too, that I really probably wouldn't have been a bad thing for J.R. Smith to have been suspended for a game and see how you do without him, because basically he just took 7 possessions away from you last night.
Yeah. I didn't like the play. It definitely was dirty, and I 100% could think the NBA didn't suspend him for 2 reasons. Cleveland, they want Cleveland to advance to the NBA Finals, even though Boston is, Celtics, a big market. The players aren't marketable yet, like LeBron James is. A Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're not household names yet. So I definitely think the NBA wants to try and see a LeBron NBA Finals again. And then in addition to that, I don't know. I lost my train of thought there. But the NBA is going to try and make an impact in not suspending him, but it should have been definitely a lot worse than a flagrant 1.
And I'm just really lucky that Marcus Smart didn't throw a blow, because I think missing Marcus Smart would have been much bigger deal for Boston than Cleveland losing J.R. Smith. So I'm lucky that Tristan Thompson saved Boston there and held back Marcus Smart from throwing a punch. Orlando, what'd you think about that? I'm not sure the plays come any dirtier than that.
Yeah, I thought a suspension was coming or something. I just kept thinking, man, if that was someone like Draymond, he would have been ejected or suspended. But
And that's the last time you saw a big suspension or, late season playoff suspension like that is when it affected Golden State 2 years ago. And it affected them because Cleveland won the championship.
Yeah, and I mean, and you like to see kind of hard play, and especially like in playoff basketball. These guys are out here fighting for it all. But yeah, a play like that, defensive guy pushing him from the back. I didn't agree with that, and I thought they handled it poorly. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it should have been suspension, but J.R. Smith isn't making much of a difference for Cleveland anyway.
When I'm just surprised that they came back, really spent relatively a short amount of time looking at it compared to other things that they reviewed for 7 minutes. And then they come back with double technicals. I mean, you're more interested in the confrontation than you were the actual act of the foul. Sometimes I just don't know what the thought process is when the officials go to review these things. I think sometimes they miss points and they're overlooking things or bigger points. Y'all are too caught up in the act and the back and forth. And I don't know. I think they were probably focusing on the wrong thing. Forget the double technicals. It was a little bit of flare up, no punches were actually thrown. Let's concentrate on the act that actually happened. And I believe it was clearly a flagrant 2 on J.R. Smith, which probably would have helped Cleveland if he was suspended for game 3, but that's another story. So appreciate the question, Antone. Although, Cleveland in some damn trouble, bro. Let's move on. Sports gambling now legal, says Greg Umber. And in the entire United States, are you happy about that? Any details on how it will work? Thanks, guys, and enjoy the show. Thanks, Greg. I'm excited for it now. It's not completely open now because it's going to be in the hands of each individual state and depending on where you live. So for me, I'm in Arkansas. Let's be honest. This is a Bible Belt. This is a very conservative part of the country. I actually live in a dry county, meaning they do not serve alcohol at all. Although the city of Jonesboro, they have clubs, but you can't, there's no liquor stores within Jonesboro city limits, within Craighead County. You can go to restaurants and buy alcohol, but the county is losing money because everybody's making short trips to other counties and buying their alcohol. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. They finally came around to a lottery system, been great for the state of Arkansas as it has for any other state, as far as affording scholarships and things of that nature. It's been great. They've even gone so far now recently, and I don't know how this compares to other states, but it used to be, Dan, if you buy lottery tickets, scratch-offs, or anything like that, you had to walk in a convenience store or whatever, pay cash. Now you can even pay with a debit card, which makes it more open and more, acceptable and available to everybody to do. And I'm sure they're making even more money because of that. So not open everywhere. I think it's just a matter of time. Now it's just going to be up to these sports leagues on how they regulate it within their sports league so it doesn't contaminate their leagues. But nothing wrong with this at all. Nothing wrong with this at all. I think it's a different revenue stream for each state if they choose to take advantage.
Yeah, I think you guys know I'm a big sports gambler, I guess you would say. I like to make my fair share of wagers, and I guess you can technically say I do it illegally, although it's through an offshore account, so you can never catch me, United States government. But ultimately, I love this. I'm a huge fan of it. I know New York State is going to be one of the first 3 states most likely putting in the initiative. So, I'm definitely a big fan. My first thought actually went to how can I profit off of this besides obviously making bets. But finding out what you had said, Brandon, is basically it's going to be state run. My first thought was how can I open up a storefront and start becoming a bookmaker of some kind. So that's where my head went, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed to. I don't think it's going to be just the private citizens. It is going to be state run, whether it be casinos or different things. And not only that, but the sports leagues are also profiting off of this because there's going to be a tax on it. It was called a specific type of tax, but basically they're going to get a percentage of every single bet, the sports league. So they're going to profit off it even more as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm heading to Atlantic City in August for my bachelor party. And it's definitely going to be up and running then. They're trying to get it up by Memorial Day weekend. So I'm looking forward to heading to New Jersey and taking part in that right away, too.
Well, when it's going to hit for most states who choose to comply? By the opening of college football season, guarantee you that. Everything will be up and running. That's probably our next big kickoff, wouldn't you say, Dan? I mean, you got some baseball. You may even have World Cup throughout the summer this year. But my college
the
football season.
Football is going to be the biggest thing. I mean, you could just look at Vegas. That's their heavy betting time is during football season, college football, NFL. So yeah, I definitely think you're going to see maybe them take a couple months now into the summer to get it ready and set up and fully functional before football season starts.
Going to be a lot of states not wasting any time. There's going to be a lot of states where it's held up in state legislature for a year or so, trying to determine. But what do you think about it, Orlando?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this too. Obviously, here in Texas, it's pretty conservative. It's San Antonio, not so much, but the sports and stuff, there's petitions and stuff that I've signed along with other people, like in small groups who would send to the governor, whoever it was, to make the stuff legal. And, and finally it is. And we kind of knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. So I'm actually very excited about this, and hopefully it won't be that much longer till, we could all start putting in wagers and making in money or whatever this is. Because, this is fun, and this is good news for everybody.
Here you go. Can't wait. Thanks for bringing it up, Greg. We're happy to address it. So we'll see what happens from there, state by state. Let's move on back to the NBA. Talk a little NBA. This one comes from Tilly Dent. Who should Toronto hire as their next head coach? I want to see it go to Jay Kidd. So that's from Tilly Dent. I assume Tilly is a Toronto fan, but Jason Kidd has got to be up there in the running. I know him and Vinny Del Negro were in the running for the Suns job. Before that went to Igor Kosikov, I believe. I'm just going off memory there. I don't know. But interesting thing about that, the guy who the Suns just hired was Luka Doncic's former Real Madrid coach, I believe. He was a former coach of him. So look out. I'm not exactly positive. The Phoenix Suns have got a hard choice here with this number one pick. Going with DeAndre Ayton, who I think a lot of people agrees the consensus is probably number one, the hometown kid as well from Arizona, or the guy who the new head coach is very familiar with Luka Doncic, who could be the next phenomenon, European phenomenon in the league. So I don't know. Tough question. Tough choice there. Maybe not for the Phoenix Suns, but thought that was interesting. So I found some notes on Toronto here. They're entering the offseason with 12 players under contract, $126 million on the books. That's the fourth highest projected payroll in the NBA, and $25 million over the protected cap, of course, at $126 million. So the team has no draft picks this coming year. So coming off the way they ended in the playoffs, being swept again by Cleveland, it's a tough decision. But I got one crazy name for you. This name is Jerry Stackhouse. He is currently the coach of the Toronto G League affiliate, the Raptors 905. They went to the finals. They're currently in the finals this year of the G League playoffs, I guess. I don't really keep up with it. I don't know what channel that's on. I don't know if that's on the NBA network or not, NBA TV. But anyway, they're in the finals of that, and they won it last year under the tutelage of Jerry Stackhouse. A lot of you guys remember Jerry Stackhouse, former North Carolina great, and Sixers great. He played for a few teams, I believe. But Jerry Stackhouse. But some other names out there, Monty Williams. Becky Hammond. Is a team going to get a team – Orlando's familiar with Becky Hammond, but is a team outside of the Spurs ever going to give her a shot to be a head coach? I think that day is rapidly approaching. So then, of course, Jason Kidd, Vinny Del Negro, who got turned down, or the Suns passed over those guys. So that's just some of the names I had pulled up on the list. Dan, what you think? What might be the best fit? Would you trust Jerry Stackhouse to start running that team?
Get out of here, Jerry. I'm going to give you another name that's maybe a little out of the box, probably won't happen, but has ties to general manager Masai Ujiri, and that's my man, George Karl. Bring him back one last time. I think the way his offense would kind of work in Toronto, kind of more fast-paced than what they run, I think with their guard play, I think it would be a match made in heaven. And Masai Ujiri is the guy who hired him in Denver. So I like that pairing. Whether or not it's ever going to happen, probably won't. There's been reports that he's going to get blackballed because of the book that he wrote, Furious George, where he named names and did things like that. I read the book. I didn't think it was bad. It was a great read. But that's the name. I'm only giving that name. Maybe Mike Budenholzer. He's another guy that I would think might be a nice fit. But I want to see George Karl head north of the border.
Yeah. Budenholzer is top on a lot of the available coaching lists too as well. And going back to the Becky Hammon point, how would you feel about Becky Hammon taking over your Spurs one day, or do you think that a team is going to give her a shot in the near future?
No, I think a team is definitely going to give her a shot, especially with everything going on. It's just a matter of when or who's going to get her. I think she's interviewed for a couple of teams before. I know she's been brought up for taking over as the Raptors coach as well, but I'm not too sure when that is. It could be this, coming up season that we see her as a head coach for another team, or if she doesn't remain leaving the Spurs. If she does remain with the Spurs, I mean, it may not be a couple more seasons until we see her taking over as a Spurs head coach.
Any other names that you might want to throw out there as to who you might think?
Yeah, I was going to go butt off what Dan said, and that is Mike Budenholzer. I mean, and you said it yourself for Toronto. They're over the cap. They don't have any draft picks. If this is a team who's getting tired of being pushed around by Cleveland in the playoffs, or want to take the next step, why not take a guy who's already seasoned, who's had successful seasons in Atlanta? Last season was pretty horrible, but this is a guy who's he's hit 60 games before, not that long ago. I think in 2014. They've had some successful playoff runs now. So you got DeRozan there, you got Lowry there, you got Valanciunas there. You got some guys there. You're ready to make that push. I think you need to go after a seasoned coach instead of a coach who's going to be more built for like a rebuild mode.
Yeah. Also, some other big names that are out there. You got your Van Gundys. Both of them are out there after Stan was recently let go by Detroit. Mike Brown is out there. Frank Vogel, former Indiana coach. Monty Williams, former coach. We know for him from his day in Oklahoma City, tragically passed away. Jay Wright, I mean, is he going to stay in Philadelphia? Philadelphia and Villanova, which is what I would do. I think he's got it made, but his name's going to come up in a lot of conversations. That would be unique. That would be a unique fit there if he would decide to go there. So that's just some of the names that might be heading there. And I'm not sure why we haven't really heard much more at this point. I guess it was just a week or so that Dwayne Casey was fired, but I'm surprised we haven't heard more about interviews, or at least I haven't heard anything about potential interviews there in Toronto, but they need to figure that out. Well, maybe they don't, because they don't have any draft picks. There's no urgent need for a Toronto coach to get in there and start figuring out who he wants to add to his team. So, but that's just some of the names. Appreciate the question, Tilly. Let's move on. But let's talk about you guys, one of you guys' favorite players. Dan even went as far as to name his female cat after this guy. But former Cowboys great, Dez Bryant. This one comes from Sweet Baby Ray. And I want to know, is Sweet Baby Ray, he's the one that makes the barbecue sauce? Y'all know Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, or is that just a Southern thing? Orlando, you know about that?
Oh, yeah, definitely know. But it probably is a Southern thing, so I'm not too sure if Dan knows about that.
What? I know what Sweet Baby Ray's is.
Okay, good. I didn't know. I just wanted to throw it out there. I meant no disrespect. But this is from Sweet Baby Ray himself. When the F will Dez Bryant sign, and will Witten be right about the Packers? So I told you guys on the podcast a couple weeks ago that at Green Bay, I just think he should go to an elite team. He's not even 30 yet. I think he has some good football still ahead of him, but I think he needs to play with an elite guy where he's not the top receiver and just could be a nice, veteran supplementary piece like what New England does all the time. And I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would love to have an athlete like that. So I know, first he said he wanted to stay in the NFC East, maybe to kind of stick it to Dallas twice a year. But the Giants have pretty much said, no, you don't want to go to Washington and play under Alex Smith, Dez. You just don't. And Philadelphia probably has not much interest. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. Turned down a multi-year deal with the Ravens. I mean, I don't know. I just think he thinks he can do better. And then we have the current rumors to the Packers, as Sweet Baby Ray mentioned. So, Dan, let's start with you. What do you think?
It would be very prophetic of Jason Witten if he were to call this one. I guess you too, Brandon.
I called it before Jay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Jay Witt's got some new hair, so I don't know if any of you saw that. Good for him. Yeah, I mean, Tony Romo calls plays before they happen. Maybe Jay Witt calls signings before they happen. And Green Bay went out and they drafted 2 receivers, Equanimous St. Brown from Notre Dame and Jamon Moore from Missouri, 2 very unpolished, raw receivers. So they're not really going to be playing too much as the rookie year. So it definitely makes sense. A sleeper team that I have is –
and that shows that the Packers are looking for a wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, losing Jordy Nelson in the offseason, you still have Devontae Adams, a very aging and not as good Randall Cobb. There was Geronimo Allison from Illinois who was drafted a couple of years ago. He kind of came on late. So they definitely have some bodies, but, not of the experience of Dez Bryant. So I think it definitely makes sense. A sleeper team that I'm keeping my eye on is the Miami Dolphins. They lost Jarvis Landry. They still have Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, but, that doesn't really scream, wow, wide receiver core. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get closer towards training camp, maybe a training camp body or injury happens, and then you might see a team pony up and sign Dez. He's not going to sign what he's going to want. He's going to want $9 to $10 million a year on a 1-year deal, I would think. He's probably going to have to sign for $4 to $5 million tops. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But I wouldn't expect him to sign anytime soon. Throughout the entire summer, maybe August is when you might see him put pen to paper.
And why rush it? He has no need to rush it. Yep. Someone's going to sign him. He's going to land on a roster. And one of the reasons I saw that the Baltimore Ravens deal fell through is because, like you just mentioned, Dan, he is looking for a 1-year deal because he's looking for a 1-year deal to show his worth and then maximize maybe another 2 or 3 year deal. Exactly. So he's not looking for any kind of long-term anything. And I just imagine the money didn't add up for what he thinks his expectations are or what his worth is there in Baltimore. And let's be honest. I mean, do you really want to play for Baltimore right now? Because the best case scenario, you have either Joe Flacco or Lamar Jackson, a rookie, trying to get you the ball and get you money and win you a big contract. I don't know that I would do that either. So what do you think, Orlando?
A team I would like to see Dez on. I would like to see him go to a contender. He's not that old, but he's definitely getting up there. I think a team like the Saints would be a pretty good fit, playing alongside Michael Thomas. They didn't get Graham, they didn't get Nelson. I think with Kamara, then with Mark Ingram came back, they got a pretty good solid team. Dez has that size. He doesn't have to be the number 1 there. There's not a lot of pressure on Dez there. But I think that would be a good fit. I'm not too sure how that'll fit or if that happens. Another team I think would be a good fit. But kind of awkward with the quarterback situation would be the Seahawks playing alongside with Doug Baldwin. I know they lost Richardson and Jimmy Graham. But when you got a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who's scrambling the whole time, it might make it difficult for a guy like Dez Bryant, who likes to run the deep routes. So those are 2 teams that come to mind when I think of Dez, playing for a contender or a team that could take him pretty far into the playoffs.
Dan, have you had any word or seen anything? Is it if New England is even remotely interested at all?
I haven't. But to go completely off topic, because we were just talking about it, the Bucks just named Mike Budenholzer their head coach. Completely off topic.
The Bucks
just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, a former spot of Jay Kidd. So
crazy. But no, I haven't heard anything on the Patriots. So just wait, Dez. Chill, hang out with your mom. I don't know. Work out, stay in shape.
Yep.
Keep throwing in
I
barbecues.
Yep. No need to rush it. Now he's finally free of the Cowboys entourage that he had to carry around with him, his own personal security team. Was that even a thing in the last year or so?
Orlando?
Nah, I don't think so. If it was, I didn't see much about it, the way it was early on.
He grew out of that. Good for him. All right, Sweet Baby Ray, appreciate it. All right, it's time for Nick and Judy Pertins. Let's finish this thing off with a Nick and Judy question from the Nick and Judy Show. Lando, you are surprising Judy and I, but we highly doubt you'll be holding the title when we hit September. Beginner's luck is what we call it. Let's make it interesting. You win the league, I'll name our firstborn Orlando. If we win the league or finish better than you, you have to do a show with Nick sharpied on your forehead. But don't tell Judy. P.S. Brandon, you'll never win anything with your constant rejection of trades. Okay, first, let me just give my compliments to the Nick and Judy show for having an outstanding first 6 weeks to the fantasy baseball season. Your fantasy baseball prowess is greater than mine, Nick and Judy, and I'll tell you why I'm rejecting these trades. I've told Dan before. I don't know if they're good or not. And plus, you were hitting me up before the season even started. I'm not keeping up with it enough to know. And I think it's too early to tell anyway. Baseball's a long season. And I think you even bamboozled Dan with a trade for Shohei Ohtani, which Dan may be regretting now because he's gone 500 since making that trade. So I don't know if it strengthened his team or not. But you guys are doing great. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But Orlando's doing great now. So if my memory serves me correctly, there is 3 5-1 teams in the league. Nick and Judy for sure, Orlando for sure. Those are your top tier guys. Myself and Dan Schalk are 3-3. I had a guy throw a no-hitter last week and got 76 points off one outing, and I still couldn't win. So I'm kind of discouraged about my team long-term. Feel like I'll make the playoffs, but I don't have the strongest team. Maybe I do need to make some of those trades. But Orlando, is this a bet you're willing to make? Are you feeling that confident in your fantasy baseball game?
I mean, look, if anything, there's a lot of pressure on them. Okay, and I'm not even going to go as far as saying I'm going to win the league. I mean, this is my first time playing. I mean, I'm off to a pretty good start. I mean, anything can happen. I'll take it for what it is. Definitely paying more attention to this than what I did in basketball. I know you and Dan could definitely agree with that. But if he's going as far, you know, I don't know how serious Nick and Judy are about this. I don't even know if Judy knows about this. Saying that if I win it all, they're going to name the first child after that. If they're willing to go that far, sure, I'll take them. What I have to do, I'm not worried about finishing behind Nick if that's the case. You know, what the worst I have to write is Nick on my forehead. I mean, the fact that there's a chance that they have to name the first child after me, and then they have to get that story where they got that name from. It's like, yeah, we named it as some guy who beat us in fantasy baseball. I'm taking that deal all day.
That will be on ESPN one day. That will be
and I want to see the birth certificate, everything. I want to see it set in stone if that happens.
I got a twist to it. How about this, Nick? Maybe this will smooth it over with Judy a little bit. Make Orlando do it with lipstick. Instead of a Sharpie, make him do lipstick. A nice pink, bright lipstick. Like Nick, loving some Nick. And then Nick, how about Nick on one cheek, Judy on the other? In the show across the forehead. Let's make it more interesting. But I'm out of this conversation. You guys are the ones doing all the fantasy baseball winning, so you guys are the ones that are in control here. But Dan, what's your confidence level? Is Nick and Judy or Orlando, either one of them, going to win the fantasy baseball title?
No, they won't.
I could admit that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously going to win. My team is still very strong. The Ohtani deal is looking better for me as the time progresses. My only mistake was giving up Barrios. But yeah, no, I'll be the moderator or witness to this bet. It'll be on. Let's call it on. It's a go because I just want to see it happen. Whether Nick and Judy name their firstborn that. I guess there might have to be a condition that it's a guy, a baby boy. I don't know if it is or not, but
it could be same sex. Yeah,
same sex. Okay.
Orlando. There you go. That's nice.
Yeah. So maybe the Pertons are trying to get away with a middle name, or is this a first name thing? So yeah, I mean, there's some tweaks to work out, but I'll be the moderator of the bet. So you're both finished behind me. That's all I know.
Well, maybe Nick says don't tell Judy because Judy's reaction to Nick saying, can we name the kid Orlando is, hell no, what are you thinking? That may not even be close to her radar. So that may be the part of it from Nick here. But we'll see. That will be interesting. But glad the Pertons chimed in. Outstanding content from them as always. So We appreciate that. But that's going to do it for this podcast. Mailbag questions coming at you. Check out our next podcast. We're going to answer more mailbag questions. Check out the previous couple of podcasts we did reviewing the NBA playoffs. And what else did we talk about? Oh, yeah. Fantasy football rookies. Yeah, see, my mind isn't even there, but we did that for you. Fantasy football rookies in May, giving you some fantasy football value there. So check out those podcasts. Check out all the changes coming to My Fantasy Podcast and MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Check it out daily for all your content, sports and entertainment. Why go anywhere else? I don't know why you do that. But for Orlando Torres and my co-host Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. See you next time, podcast peeps. Peace.